I've had a recent revelation. I've realised that this is the future of the smartphone, whether you or I like it or not. It's a topic worth talking about because it's going to, or already has for some, change the way we see and evaluate these little pocket computers. So let's talk about that. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and I've always looked at smartphones fairly objectively, but with a level of nuance and somewhat of focus on hardware. I take my initial review of the Pixel 9 Pro, and then a couple of weeks later compare it to my follow-up review that I did. I spent ages trying to figure out and formulate an accurate message for my base model Pixel 9 long-term review, but I think the best way I can sum it up is that this is the future of smartphones. Instead of specs and hardware telling a lot of the story, it's going to be more about what it can do in the real world, with a combination of AI and cloud where a lot of this processing is actually happening, not on device. It's going to do with the efficiency, the refinement of hardware and features instead of just adding more of them, and that's not only going to make my job as a tech analyst and reviewer trickier, but it'll also make deciding between devices for the average consumer a bit harder too. The Pixel 9 is a phone I wish everybody could have access to in terms of the level of features and the quantity of them. It has the latest AI features from the Big G, it has incredibly capable cameras, not only from a technical perspective, but also with the power to augment shots as well. It has Gemini, which can be fantastic at times as long as you use the advanced version. The battery life's pretty good, the performance is pretty good, the display is superb, and the little details are also very good. Its MSRP is $800, which is sort of okay, but I found deals thanks to the Black Friday sales, like $650, which makes it so much more enticing, and the Pixel 9 is more recommendable now than it was before. Definitely a very complete package for this kind of price. And the first thing that I'd be doing even up to 6 months ago would be to check out all the hardware specs of this phone. When you do this with the Pixel 9, it returns an okay but slightly underwhelming list. But when you pick the Pixel 9 Pro up physically and use it a bit, you start to realise that the outcome is not in line with the sum of its parts. Okay, so for example, the performance. It's way more than you'd expect given the Google Tensor G4 chipset benchmarks just so poorly compared to the competition. It runs way better than you'd think. This is not a gaming phone, not from any competitive standpoint definitely, but your average person might load up COD Mobile every now and then, or Genshin for an hour every month, and for those people, this is more than enough. This is more in line with the sort of target demographic. This is not meant to be an enthusiast phone, but the people's phone. It handles multitasking, switching between checking your bank account and then that expensive new toy you've been eyeing up, or switching between Discord and Reddit for 9 hours a day. This phone doesn't leave you feeling like you need anything else, a distinct contrast to the feeling you get when you check the specs and benchmarks. The camera is also a phenomenal case of this. You might think that not having any kind of telephoto camera on here might mean that pinching in just isn't an option. But even with a 5x crop on the main sensor, this camera system is easily able to spit out a solid zoomed in shot. Are they anywhere near as good as a dedicated 5x on something like the Pixel 9 Pro? Okay, no, not quite as good, but in a lot of cases they are absolutely usable, and the lack of dedicated long lens on paper grossly misrepresents the potential and versatility of this dual camera setup. It's a really capable camera that takes inoffensive photos with pretty natural colours and some lovely sharpness and detail with any of the 3 cameras on this entire device. It lacks that super ultra wide selfie camera from the Pro, which you might care about or you might not, but I don't think this is going to impact a lot of people. The same goes for the 8K video boost. Sure, it's substantially better than the Ultra HD 4K that's available on this one, but that in itself is already good high quality footage, so I have no complaints with the Pixel 9's video capabilities. And the quality is only the tip of the iceberg. Google Photos tools are what sell Pixels to many people. You know, stuff like AdMe, TopShot, Magic Editor, Audio Razor. They aren't what you might find on a spec sheet, but they add a layer of quality that means something to a fair few people. People being more interested in these Google phones has been statistically proven, by the way. And that's no surprise if you've ever picked one of these phones up. If you have, you'll know that this is one of the nicest feeling smartphones on the market right now. It's a lovely size, not too big, even with a case on it, but big enough to get everything you want done on the go and still fit in your pocket comfortably. The flat sides are nicely blended into the front and rear glass elements, and maybe my biggest bugbear with the 9 is its camera bump, because it sticks out an awfully long way from the rest of the housing, but that's almost certainly a byproduct of using larger sensors, and sticking a case on it all but eliminates this issue entirely. It's also in these little in-person improvements that make the 9 feel like a way bigger upgrade than you might see on a spec list. It feels more serious in the hand. The new ultrasonic fingerprint reader is just way better than the previous one. The Wi-Fi and cellular connections just feel that bit more stable. And general zippiness means you feel less like you're holding and using a Galaxy alternative, and more like the Galaxy is the alternative to this. I'm not calling the Pixel 9 a perfect device by any means. On sale or not, 27-watt charging just feels outdated and something that should be reserved for sort of like the lower end SKUs, the Pixel A series, if you like. It's not a deal breaker if you charge your phone overnight, which, let's face it, most people do. And you know what, maybe that's poetically fitting of the overarching narrative of this video. For most people, this slower charging will never matter. A lot won't ever notice that it's slow. But I have to call it out because it's a particular bugbear of mine with this particular phone. And having said that, the battery life has been very good for me. It got me through a full day every time, even when taking lots of photos for the test on this review. And since 90% of Pixel 9 buyers will be looking to top their phones up overnight, yeah, that's all it needs to be, 1 day of battery life. Don't get me wrong, it could probably do a day and a half, but most people aren't looking for that, and it's kind of awkward to have to charge the phone halfway through the next day. So again, for most people, this is going to be absolutely fine. They say the Pixel is all about the software, and as much as I generally disagree with that sentiment, I think the hardware is very much on stage this year. It now having Android 15 is welcomed, and sure, it's not the groundbreaking update that we all hoped and maybe thought it would be, but the AI tools were still here from the start. You know, the Google Gemini Live, Pixel Screenshots and Pixel Studio, they've all been here since Android 14, so that really didn't change with Android 15. And those features are very neat and interesting for the techies out there that want to try some cutting edge stuff, but for a large chunk of people, these apps are never going to be opened, and that's okay. As I say every time I mention AI, please don't rely on critical information coming from AI bots. They can and do get these things wrong, and so it's always best to double check that information yourself, but for generally just playing around, AI is a phenomenal tool. The other things, the display quality, the software fluidity, the colors, the overall design, they're all just really solid and make me wonder if you'd ever need to go for the Pro unless you were actually a pro yourself. I wish everyone had access to, or at least the option to have, a Pixel 9, as it really is the future of smartphones. It has all the stuff you need, a load of stuff you don't, and isn't the top-end wallet-melting option that gets shoved down your throat in ads. This is a phenomenal little device, and you might not have known that had you only checked the specs. What do you guys think of the Pixel 9? I am a fan this year. I prefer the Pro, as that's the one I'd have because of the telephoto camera, and I like having a telephoto camera, but that's just me. While you're down there in the comments debating and telling me what your thoughts are on the Pixel 9, feel free to hit like if you enjoyed today's content, and of course, subscribe to never miss another upload. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you later. Cheers.